Pickleball.
It looks like lazy people's tennis, and I think that's what it is people don't want to run, but they want to do something.
It's ping pong without the table. Oh,
It looks like shitty ping pong. I like ping pong. I don't get pickleball.
Who came up with this shit? Are there stars in pickleball? Are there guys? Jim Sarney was pointing out some local person. I think a woman is like the number one pickleball player. And how come she's not getting more attention? Because the game sucks. Has that replaced shuffleboard in most of these like 5-star senior residences?
It looks like a senior game. It looks like
and
you want to be active.
From Century Village, right here in Pembroke Pines, it's the National Senior Pickleball Championship. And today, Irving Schwartz is going to go out there. Irving's undefeated now in singles and doubles.
And Saul Bernstein.
Yeah. The B'nai B'rith is backing today's event. Never mind. I don't think we'll see a lot of old Jewish people at Century Village playing pickleball. Is there a demand in front of the Homeowners Association to put in some courts? Take out the shuffleboard? They have tennis courts there. My mother was always telling me, why don't you come here and play tennis? Because there's like a chalk outline of the last guy that played tennis on the court there. Zakovich, I think was his name. Irving.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Quick question for you, Lubie, before we get started here. Do Jews get read their last rites, or is that just a Catholic thing, a Christian thing?
I think it's Catholic.
Okay, so there would be no need. I was always wondering why there was a rabbi hanging around the tennis courts at Century Village. And I figured it wasn't that he was a second coming of Roger Federer or even Harold Solomon, for that matter. Who else was there? What was the tennis player's last name? He was like number 10 in the world. He was coaching at FIU. Jay Berger. Remember that guy?
Berger, yep.
Two of the better Jewish tennis players, and then you got our guy out there always digging, but not necessarily having great results anymore, Diego Schwartzman. An Argentine Jew, which, that's a funky kind of Jew, is it not? I mean, Spanish Jews, Cuban Jews. Are you buying it? Are you really Jewish? And if you're not from Brooklyn, get out of here. What are you talking about? It's a good way to start a week.
Yeah. What do you?
Well, I'm been off my game. I'm
really
not ashamed to admit it. And, the reason why we talked about it on our 5 Reasons Sports Network, Defo 5 earlier this morning. And I blew the entire 10-minute segment because and you saw as I was starting even to be, get ready into get in the mode in this show, what's in my mind, right? How deep is your love? Yeah, one of the most pathetic songs I've ever had stuck in my head. I don't know. What's the worst song you've ever had stuck in your head? We explored that, as we mentioned earlier this morning as well, with Debbie Boone one day, the actual Debbie Boone. For some reason, Lubie was able to book an interview with her. I wasn't sure how that was going to go. Were you, Lubie? I thought she might be pretty cool. Because, her father, Pat, obviously was a humongous star, so there's even something to the story there. And I think I'd seen, just a few fragmented details of her life story, and it was interesting. I did not expect her to be as candid or colorful or as actually hysterically funny as she was in her way of viewing things. And even she admitted that, she wouldn't apologize for it, but she said, listen, if You Light Up My Life was stuck in your head for any period of time, I'm sorry. Her biggest hit. And she's saying that we should have used the 45 as a Frisbee on the beach, as opposed to going over and over again in your head. You light up my life. Well, what's the worst song you've ever had stuck in your head, Louie, where you couldn't get it out? You were willing to try almost any method, drugs, hypnosis, anything you could think of to have somebody just spook it out of you. And this only happened because I happened to watch a few seconds of Saturday Night Fever, which I then, for some reason, self-sabotage, I guess, stayed on it for about 10 minutes yesterday when I was perusing channels and in between sporting events. And I'm asking myself, how did this piece of shit reach such critical acclaim, Louis, to the point where John Travolta, who was good in a lot of movies, I mean, it wasn't like, every movie he did. The Conversation was a good movie with Gene Hackman. That's like one of the better movies I think that was ever made, Conversation. Was that a Coppola thing too? The Conversation. Who was the director on that? It wasn't that Whitey Herzog guy that the professor was talking about, was
Werner,
it?
Werner Herzog.
Now, is he a well-known director, or is that just one of those intellectual things the professor was throwing out there? What do you
I
think?
presume he's well known. I don't know him, but again, you and I are more.
Werner Herzog.
I mean,
Yeah, didn't know much about him. Okay, Tom Edwards on our chat line says Muskrat Love. That's a good one. Any Captain and Tennille song too. I waited on them once in that natural restaurant that I was working on, at the Sunset Strip. The captain was a stiff, man. Tennille was pretty good. She was all right. Did she check out first, or did the captain? Which
I don't
one?
know. I don't.
Tennille might still be alive. I don't know. I know the captain checked out, and he wore that stupid hat everywhere he went. Man, it was like, what are you, Alan Hale or something? Where are we, Gilligan's Island? Take the fucking hat off and go ahead and eat your sandwich. that was my thought, but I naturally said, "Boy, I love your music. I really do. You guys are great." But they had a song that was just absolutely hideous. That was one of those lingering, tunes that you have in your head that you can't eradicate it from your mind. But this, "How Deep Is Your Love?" I mean, it has me. I mean, really, really screwed up right now. I'm thinking about hallucinogenics to get rid of it, or maybe I go to that retreat that Aaron Rodgers went to. You think that's why he went there? Because he happened to watch Saturday Night Fever, and while he was calling signals, he's going, da, 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 da. Tell me how deep is your love, because I want to tell you to go fuck yourself over and over again. Yeah, da, 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 da. All right, I'll get off of that, Louis. Because, this would normally be Phil in what would be the dog days of summer, no? Where the countdown was on, you were already trying to examine whether or not the Dolphins had enough depth in their wide receiver core in case either Waddle or maybe Tyreek Hill, does he incur some kind of suspension for this suspect incident that has sort of been swept under the rug, is it not? I mean, good job never mind Stu Weinstein. I don't know if Stu's still around. I hope he is. I like the guy, man. He was a tremendous guy. The security chief that was always around Shula. Do you remember Stu Weinstein at all? Did you ever encounter him? Real gentleman, man. I mean, this was at a kinder, gentler time in covering sports, too, where you kind of got to know the guys. I was thinking about this on my walk of life the other day, where, those sort of 90s Dolphins teams that I had a chance to cover in great detail, and you were out at practices and all the events and even socialized with some of these guys, although, and you know me, Lubie, I am not a jock sniffer. That's not my game. I didn't get into this so I could, get to know athletes and say, hey, look at me. I'm hanging out. Dan Marino knows my name. That wasn't my thing. I do enjoy these stories, and I really appreciate great sports stories. And that's kind of what motivated me to get into this whole thing to begin with, right? Early reader of Sports Illustrated, where they were writing all these eloquently written articles, and it was a little bit of a different take on things. They went a little deeper into detail, and it was great. So I love a good sports story. But back then, I mean, you were kind of close to the team. You almost felt like, I don't know, do you want to say that you were a part of it? But, to this day, right, all of those relationships are still good. I don't know that you forge those kind of relationships in today's professional sports environment. What do you think, Lubie?
No way. They don't let you get close. The players don't let you get close at all.
No, I mean, I don't know that I blame them, but it was a different feeling. And it kind of had all of those games that we used to cover have a little bit more impact, right? You didn't want to see a despondent Zach Thomas, but with a towel over his head, I mean, bleeding from every pore and telling you, I can't believe we lost this game. I don't know if I'll be able to live with myself till next week. That was kind of the thing. And you identified with the people, whereas now, what? I mean, it's a lot easier to tee off on a loss, is it not? We found a great euphoria in covering some winning teams for a change, and we've had a lot of winning here in South Florida over the last several months. But we're going to have to turn our attention to Major League Baseball is in town. Lone Shark Park, which was a cavernous just empty, cavernous, empty. I mean, there was nothing going on there. The sounds. I'm a big fan of the ambient sound of sports, right? I would like to go out and record a lot of this stuff and incorporate it into shows. I never really got around to any of that. And I don't know that it would have mattered that much anyway. Had we been doing that all of those years that we were on the radio, where it was theater of the mind, do you think it would have been appreciated, or would the program director have held a management meeting and said, "We got to get DeForest to stop playing those sound effects"?
Uh,
I mean, a little crowd noise in the background wouldn't that be good on a sports talk show, like you were at a ball game? Nah, I don't think so. But I do like to incorporate sort of the. I mean, when you see a well-produced piece, it usually makes good use of what would be sporting sound, no? Just the audio sort of background narrative that there is at a sporting event. And, you can tell what's going on by the reaction of the crowd, and a little crowd noise incorporated into things. It doesn't hurt, does it? When you're doing a ball game, it certainly helps out a lot.
yes.
You don't want those three guys that are sitting 2 feet away from you that are going, Rhaegar, all day at Marklight Stadium, and that's the only ambient sound you're getting from the arena that you're working in. It was the same thing. I mean, you could hear the basketballs bouncing at those Canes games that I was doing many years ago. Which another aside here, I don't know if you've ever seen this. I watched a couple of 30 for 30s last night on ESPN, and one was on Felipe Lopez. Felipe, have you seen that one with Felipe Lopez? Very interesting, especially so for me because I remember doing a couple of games with Felipe Lopez, and he played all 4 years at St. John's and actually graduated. Came in as a freshman phenom. It was all the rage around the country. He was being touted as LeBron James was being touted, when he went into the pros. I mean, everybody was, holy shit, St. John's got Felipe Lopez. This is unbelievable. And his freshman year, he lived up to the billing, and then he went into a funk his sophomore year. And I believe that had to be the season that the University of Miami got its first Big East win at Alumni Hall against the St. John's Redmen. And that was also the night that, it was the great story about meeting Bob Shepard, one of my idols, where, he is introduced to me by Sonny Hirsch. Sonny says, this kid's crazy. He's always doing Bob Shepard impressions. And Bob Shepard says, it's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you. And I'm like, wait a minute.
He really just does it.
He fucking repeats everything. He's Johnny 2 times. But they won that game, and I remember I had a little wager on that game because I saw something in the Canes. There was a spark. If you're covering every game, that's an advantage. If you can hold back from betting every game like a fool, betting every race like a fool, you could probably make a score every time you went to the racetrack, no? Look, I don't know about every time, but you'd have a lot better shot of winning than you do just going, okay, well, what race is next here? Let me back wheel a favorite. I don't have time to handicap the race, and even if I did, I would screw it up. But Felipe Lopez, I remember thinking, and he was such a disappointment in that game. I remember thinking, just like everybody else, what the hell was all this hype about this kid? And he really slumped, and he came back. Fran Fraschilla became the head coach the junior year of Felipe Lopez's run at St. John's. And so he had actually helped get a coach fired. And Fraschilla, saw something in the kid and kind of restored his confidence. Came back, had a big senior year, and then was drafted in the first round by the NBA. His NBA career looked like it was going nowhere. He ended up in Vancouver to start. And then, he started to make it with the Timberwolves. I think he was averaging like 17 or 18 a game with the Timberwolves his 4th year in the NBA. And just as he's about to get into free agency and a big contract, he tears a knee ligament and is out for a couple of years. So, real star-crossed, but it was a great story. I mean, it turned out that this guy's plot in life and plight in life, it turned out just fine because he's doing exactly what he wanted to do. I guess he had put away enough money so he could be a very charitable, member of his Dominican Republic society, but where he went back and is just doing like wonderful charitable things and is living a good life. And it shows you, and one of the concluding things about this piece, which is interesting, because we never take this into consideration, Lubie, that, maybe you don't have to be the best pro of all time, even though everybody thought that that's what you were going to be. Everybody thought this guy was going to be the greatest college basketball player of all time. When it was him versus Iverson in their freshman year.
Oh, yep.
Unbelievable. And I actually was doing those games, I guess, when Iverson was both a freshman and a sophomore. And what was funny was you could see a big step up, I guess, in terms of his basketball maturity as a team player in Iverson. Now, that's odd to call him a team player, but he got a lot more acclimated. I don't know if John Thompson, what he was saying to him, but Iverson's jump from his freshman year into his sophomore year in terms of having at least a semblance, a modicum of discipline in his play, what was, it was very noticeable, very perceivable. Lopez, a complete drop off. I mean, from freshman to sophomore year, unreal. And the other one that was very interesting was about the Hernandez brothers, Levon and El Duque. Did you ever see that one?
No.
Brothers in Exile. Are these new or no? They were on ESPN too, so they have to be as
I
old
don't
as
know.
Jerry Quarry fights they show.
I haven't seen 30 for 30 in years.
No, I mean they've been racking a lot of them. The Bill Walton one, that's a new one that's out, is outstanding. I mean, you can't help but feel good after watching that, even if you hated Walton. Even the professor, as they alluded to the Walton Celtics, which, I mean, it was Larry Bird. Whose team is it? Is it Bill Walton's or Larry Bird's? I think Walton was a distant
He was
consideration.
done. Yeah, he was done.
Yeah. Well, he was an effective sub.
Yeah.
He actually, came off the bench as like was he a seventh, eighth man?
Yeah, he wasn't their sixth guy, but he was like soon after that.
He was to that Celtic team. Here's one for you. Can we run this by Scoop Skolnick when he comes on the show? What Phil Jackson was to those New York Knicks teams with Bradley and DeBuscher and the crew.
I mean,
Earl,
Scoop
Frazier.
a little young. I don't know if he was alive for those teams, but I'm sure he grew up in New Yorker, so he
Scoop
knew
is an historian.
aura about them. Yeah.
It's maybe a fair comparison, Libby. I don't know. Walton might have been a little more effective for those Celtics teams than it's close. It's close. If you remember Phil Jackson as a player, I mean, gangly with the elbows, in your face, scrapping for rebounds. He would come off the bench there as like the seventh or eighth man and actually make a very viable contribution, which is what made you think, Louis, that this is the kind of guy that can become a good coach. All right, all this is to dodge the usual, which was that when we got to this point of the summer, now we had a long, glorious run with the Panthers and the Miami Heat. They go deep into the playoffs. I watched. There's a great piece also on ESPN about the quest for the cup or something that it's called, where they recap the Vegas Golden Knights as they win the Stanley Cup. So of course there's a lot about the Florida Panthers in there, and really, really well done behind the scenes. Kind of it's hard to compare stuff to Hard Knocks. More like when they would get into these 24/7s on Showtime, and HBO. Are you familiar with this format?
Yes.
Because Hard Knocks is kind of staged, correct?
Yes.
They find a Scrabini rookie that has a scrawny girlfriend, and you're thinking, wow, he could get a better babe than that. No, I don't know. Usually you're thinking this guy's not even going to make the NFL, and he's with this hot woman who's lavishing him with love no matter what. It's okay, honey. It didn't matter that you dropped 6 passes in front of Joe Philbin's face. Philbin, who was going to keep you no matter what, all of a sudden has to put it in question here. Why did you even go out there and practice? You should have feigned an injury. They would have kept you on the roster. You get to know the dog. I mean, it's great. But really well done piece on that Stanley Cup final series especially. And, wow, the celebration. These guys are madmen. These NHL players. I think we got to know that a little bit more because we finally, had some kind of existence in the postseason, and that's where you really find out what I mean, it has to be far and away the most difficult team trophy to win. Correct? NHL. I mean, more than the NBA. The NBA was nearly won by an 8th seed of Scrabinis this year. And it wasn't as if they endured like a ton of pain. I know Tyler Hero got hurt diving for a ball, which I love the fact that you blame him for diving for the ball.
He's just not that guy. Like, he's never been effort, heart hustle guy.
Well, so what's wrong with becoming that?
One time he does it, he breaks his hand and is out the entire playoffs. It's like, yeah, that's about right. You're not a heart hustle guy.
But that is so De Niro-esque in the fan. I mean, the way that you continue to proliferate that theory, and that it's his fault.
No, it's
because
fine.
He wasn't a hustle guy.
I'm glad he tries to be a hustle guy. It's just funny. Like it makes sense that, yeah, that's not who you are. Maybe just, don't do that in the middle of a goddamn playoff game that your team's up by 12 over the number 1 seed.
I'm not diving into the stands. I'm sorry, Lubie. I draw a line there.
A weird time to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not diving into the stands. I don't know about you. You're more of a kamikaze type than I am.
Yes.
But I'm figuring, you know what? The ball's off me. Go ahead, take it.
The ball's off.
All right. So do we have a story here evolving here that is on the
Yes.
same level as Fernando Mania, Lubie? I mentioned that because it was one of the phenomenal seasons in Major League Baseball. You have a sort of a relatable season with Dontrell. And what was it also that made Dontrell and one of the parallels there was that both of them were exciting to watch when they were at bat because they could both hit. And, as I recall, I'm not sure that Dontrell, I mean, here was this fat Mexican kid that we thought was 16 who was actually in his mid 40s. And he could run the bases too. I mean, he had like an acute ability to run the bases. There's a talent to it. There are certain players that are good base runners, others are not. And, it clearly shows up and usually can be very costly. If you have guys that are inept base runners, is that on the coach? No. That's kind of a player instinct, isn't it? Being a good base runner. Yeah, you have to be able to judge. Is that ball going to drop in? Am I going? Do I go halfway? Am I going to have time to get back, tag up if the ball's caught? I mean, you have to have instincts. Am I taking third here automatically, even though it's a single in left field? Am I going to try it? Challenge the guy. I know the guy has a weak arm. You have to have certain instincts. Fernando had that, man. When he was on the bases, it was almost as exciting as watching him pitch.
Oh, okay.
And he could hit. He wasn't Bob Gibson with the bat, but he was adept. I mean, kind of a rotund version of Luis Ariz, who still is hitting 399. What are we on here? It's June 26th. Are you fucking kidding me, Lubie? We have a guy in the Marlins that's hitting 399 3 months, halfway through the season.
That's crazy.
And we have Fernando Mania going on, although it hasn't really caught that level of attention yet, has it?
Well, see, he's more like
this Yuri Perez is what I'm talking
about. And again, we didn't have time for me to expound on it on Defo and 5. And you sent me, like, I didn't realize, like, Fernando to me was more like Bert Fidrich or Dontrell, these really cool stories that didn't have long-term success. And I guess you said, no, Fernando had real stuff. I don't know. I don't remember looking at his.
Fernando had the Scroogey
career where he
had a left-handed screwball. I mean, they didn't call it a screwball then, but that's what he was throwing. And it wasn't a splitter, and it would go. It looked like it was going to be over the middle of the plate to right-handed hitters, and it would just all of a sudden pour out into the outside corner. The Scroogey of Fernando Valenzuela was super effective. Plus, he had that weird motion, which you alluded to with Dontrell. There was a parallel there. I would say Fernando had more sustained success than Dontrell Willis did, and was the real deal. I was watching the Marlins postgame show, and I forget the name of the gentleman that was on it. It wasn't our man Tommy Hutton, but he was saying that he had faced Fernando when Valenzuela was pitching in the Mexican leagues before he got into the pros, and that he was the toughest pitcher that he had ever gone against. This was from I don't know if it was just hyperbole, but he would have, not much reason to go ahead and make that statement because he was talking about this Yuri Perez phenomenon, and the comparison is valid because Perez is third right now on all-time Major League Baseball history in terms of earned run average through his first 9 starts, where I guess, there's some kind of qualifiers with number of innings or whatever, but and he's been going 6. And, we've seen him kind of, brought along. He's 6 innings, a shutout ball, and he's gone. And they take him out after a 4-hit performance. 1 walk. I mean, his control has been impeccable. He walked nobody and struck out 9 the last time he went 6 innings. And in the subsequent start, he now has 21 straight scoreless. And he struck out 9, only walked 1, has a 1.34 earned run average. I forget who the other guy was that was in there, but if you said his name, it would be, oh, yeah, it was him. So anyway, I mean, this is some distinction, is it not, Lubie? And now a real test comes up as the Marlins at 45 and 34. Are they playing well enough in a sustained fashion to no longer be ignorable, my friend?
Well, we'll see.
Crowds are starting to show up, too. Crowds.
Yeah, well, I was going to say Yuri, to me, reminds – as much as Dontrell was really fun, and he did have a couple years later where he was a Cy Young candidate. I think he finished 2nd and which led to him being traded to the Tigers, where he was a total disaster. He was more of a fun story like Hideo Nomo than a long-term success. Perez, to me, reminds me of Jose Fernandez, where, God rest his soul, he was on his way. He was a top 3 or 4 pitcher for years, and then he tragically passed. Like, he had stuff where he wasn't just a phenom. He was going to be the Marlins anchor for years. That's what Perez is. Like, Perez is this long dude who has a ton of stuff and is just legit. Like it's not the way he throws it or his charisma. It's the dude is just goes out there every 5th day and pitches like a freaking monster. And they've talked about him for a couple of years now. They've talked about Yuri Perez. So he seems like a kind of guy that can do this for a long time if the Marlins are smart about how they handle him. What's interesting to me is that people are starting to come now. Like our friend Brian, who is the king of Northeastern fans who hates South Florida fans, was like, so when will they come? The World Series? No, they're coming now. Like they're coming, like literally, if it wasn't a sellout yesterday, if you looked at the crowd.
That was a decent crowd for a Sunday afternoon.
More people than the number. They said it was 21,000. It looked closer to a sellout than 21,000. Like, which is rare. It's usually the opposite. Usually they'll say it's 22,000, and it looks like there's 8.
Against the Pirates in late June, they would have been lucky to draw 20,000 for the 4-game series.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, was it a 4-game series? I believe so. Because the Marlins blew one of those games. Their bullpen came in and just caved. And then it looked like they were going to blow the Saturday game as they had that thing kind of in hand. And all of a sudden started surrendering runs, 8th, 9th, and 10th innings, I believe they gave up runs, only to come back and force, I think, the 11th inning is when they finally won it, as they got a walk-off single, if you will. I mean, do you still consider it a walk-off when they start a guy on second base? Come on. I mean, any base hit is going to be a walk-off at that stage.
Yeah,
I think the Marlins had moved the runner to third before Birdie got a single. John Birdie, who is another one of these guys. You're thinking, how could this guy be a component of a largely upside winning team? If he's in your starting lineup, I mean, a good guy maybe as a utility player coming off the bench, John Birdie, all right, get you a base hit. He can pinch run. He can steal you a base late in the ball game when you're down a run or whatever, or you want to put a little bit more pressure on the other team, and play a decent. A position, in the field in terms of do a decent job, whatever position you put him in, right? Throw him in the outfield. You could even put him behind the plate, this guy, right? I don't know about that.
I don't know if he's playing catcher, but yes, I get it.
Sounded good, though, right? Hey, grab a first baseman's mitt there, Johnny boy. We need you. Gurriel's hurt. I mean, they have their whole roster pretty much is comprised of that type of player, no?
Yes.
And yet they have this kid lighting it up here, Yuri Perez, and now go on the road. They'll take on the Boston Red Sox beginning tomorrow night. And you're starting to get to the point where you want to tune in, no? They're doing this while their ace is in the tank. Sandy Alcantara, Cy Young Award winner last year, the favorite to win the Cy Young in the National League going into the season. Never mind Verlander came to the Mets, and never mind that Scherzer's still around or any of the other fine pitchers that they have in the National League. Sandy Alcantara was the low odds favorite at something like 4 or 5 to 1 to win a Cy Young back-to-back years, Lubie. That shows you, man. NFL stands for not for long.
Well, for me, what'll be the buy-in is if they're buyers, because they can't be sellers. They're too good, but they need a couple bats. Their offense sucks. Like I know it's been above its head, and their run differential is really good. They struggle.
They struggle with the Pirates, that's for sure.
They struggle night in, night out to get 3-4 runs. Like
it wasn't like them Guiders yesterday.
This series was a fucking disaster offensively, and they ended up finishing the series well in the record column. But it was the epitome of what they are. They get really good pitching, and their hitting sucks. It just does. They need a couple bats. If they go out there and go and get a couple bats, then I'll go, oh shoot, they're really in this in the season, and I'll be invested. If they screw around, it's like, okay, then they're not taking it seriously. Why should I?
Kim Ng, as Executive of the Year, is hanging in a balance, Mr. Cashman. Would you care to comment about this woman who's been chasing you around? Who is this Meanwell woman? She keeps calling. That had to be really, troubling. Imagine you're Brian Cashman there, 25 years as a Yankee GM, respected no matter what, even though, has he really been all that great? is Brian Cashman a modern-day Mike Tannenbaum? I don't think he's ruined a franchise, but if you look at what's happening with that team, not good. And your man Aaron Judge, Lubie, what a shame, huh? This guy is so great. And another example, a guy gets the big money, and then all of a sudden, through no fault of his own, I mean, he's crashing into a wall. It's fucking Minnie Minoso. And he gets hurt, and now it looks like this is more damaged. That toe can be a problem, Lubie. I can speak to that. It's like, how long is this going to take, Doc? What? I got to come back again next week? What's the x-ray look like? As my friend Jerry Perlmutter, Dr. Perlmutter said, it looks like shit, Defo. It looks like shit. You really did a number on this. All right, a couple of other things, and then we're going to get into a conversation with the great Ethan Scoop Skolnick of 5 Reasons Sports Network. And I would imagine he'll give us some illumination about what's in the coming days in the NBA. Doesn't it seem like nothing is happening with this Miami Heat team? They got their Javier Yaquez. I'm happy about that. I don't know. It's going to make a tremendous difference. He seems to be another player that fits the mold of the guys they have, which you don't think necessarily can take you over the top. Did the Heat give us a little bit of a false illusion there? As is there such a thing as a false illusion, or is it just an illusion? That that they were really on the precipice of being a perennial contender with the lineup that they have.
I mean, they've been to 3 of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals. They're not they haven't false anything. They literally, their NBA execs still saying it was a fluke. I'm like, you can't beat 3 teams they had a harder path than the Nuggets, to be brutally honest, and they did it just as easy as the Nuggets. Like, you can't beat 3 teams and say it's a fluke. Like, that's why.
Is it just because we didn't anticipate that this was going to happen?
Yeah,
that it seemed like it wasn't that easy.
The tournament can be a fluke. It's one game. One day you can get the best. That's what the NBA made it. And they don't have 3 of 5s anymore. They have 4 of 7 straight through because they don't want flukes. If you can beat a team 4 out of 7, it's not a fucking fluke. And
no way.
3 out of 4 years and made it to 2 finals. Even though they were hurt every year, every playoff run, they've been the most hurt team in the playoffs, yet they still get past all these other teams who are healthy. No, it's not a fluke. It's not fantasy. They have a really nice thing going, but they do need help. The Dame stuff swirling. Eventually, Dame's going to ask. The problem is neither side wants to be the bad guy. The Blazers know they need to trade him because they are in the middle of a rebuild, and he's not helping them. So to pay him $300 million is just stupid. And Dame
and he's already bought a house on the Intercoastal.
There you go. And he knows he's not winning there. So he knows, like, they both know it's time. The problem is no one wants to be the bad guy. Okay. At some point, someone will. And the Heat are literally at the top of that list. And that's what they're waiting for. And is it good or bad? I don't know. To me, if you can get Dame, it's worth it. So I'll wait.
All right, we'll get into that a little bit. And Scoop, well-versed in all of the South Florida sports, obviously, his 5 Reasons covers all of that, including the Messi story now with expanded soccer coverage there on 5 Reasons. So Scoop's going to join us here in just a couple of minutes. The College Baseball World Series, 24-4, them Gators on top of LSU. Jesus. And, I don't know. This is a shame to say to the Florida Gator fans. I mean, no disrespect to you or Mick Hubert, who we became friendly with. But I find myself rooting for LSU for some bizarre reason. Yeah,
I can't for the Gators. I mean, you can. I can't.
I would applaud the Gators if they won this, and that represents a 180-degree change from any stance that I've been known for with the Florida Gators in the past. How about that, Lubie? Sometimes you come to terms with things in life. Well, maybe this is a byproduct of old age, and maybe it's one of the few favorable ones as you just get older and older and older and older. My God. Did you see that bruise, Libby? That was from nothing. Can you imagine?
Yeah, that was actually a real deal bruise.
Man. I remember my friend Albert Davila, after he fought Lupe Pintor, 15 brutal rounds at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. I went over to his house about a week later, and he rolled up his shirt and said, "You see that?" It was like a massive – this almost looks that bad, right? I mean, Pintor was a heavy-hitting left-hander, man. He could crush you with one shot. And that was, the kind of bruising that this looked like. That's from nothing, though. I mean, if I brush into, like a towel, all of a sudden, wow, what's that? What's that from? Is that from, like, blood pressure medication? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes, like, my great-grandmother had bruises all over the place, and it wasn't falling. Like, sometimes meds would do that to your veins, which is sort of sucky.
Yeah. Well, how bruising would it be for me to admit that I would applaud the Gators if they win this championship? Because They will have deserved it. Now, there's always talk, and I still don't fully comprehend it. Is it because I refuse to actually take a look at this? Which is, everybody always says this, and this was true, even before the 2 out of 3 for the finals, what was put into play. Because they used to only play a 1-game final many years ago when I was involved in college baseball World Series coverage, and we were out there at Rosenblatt eating Runzas. And, it was always like, oh, fuck, man, you don't want to fall into the loser's bracket. And what it really does is it messes with your pitching completely. Because you're thinking how many top-notch starters? How many college teams have 3 stud starters? It's almost impossible.
Yeah, no.
Isn't it? Especially name, image, and likeness now. The talent's going to be spread around. Is that what's really happening? I mean, the thing that the colleges actually wanted all along is actually happening now? Where, because they're spending the money out in the open, other teams have a better shot at getting players.
I mean, Georgia and Alabama seem to do well every year, so I don't know how much it's. And USC is now jumping into the pool. So
You ever met an executive that graduated from Georgia?
No.
In any of your business ventures and dealings in life? So, I mean, is it really that all these guys are not successful? What the hell? I mean, what is it? What is it from? Hog farming? I mean, how are they making all this
their
money?
entire fan bases, which isn't alumni. It's alumni and people from the area. They give money at a rate that most fan bases don't. Most fan bases realize it's football. I have a house to take care of. I have kids. Yeah. I have my kids' future. SEC fans, especially Georgia, Alabama, are fucking insane.
They don't care, man.
They give more money of their own toward a football than most humans do. Like
they own like several Stuckey's franchises, and they don't care about giving a profit.
Texas is the billionaires. That's the oil. That's the money.
Oh yeah, well that's
SEC isn't that. Alabama and Georgia isn't that. They have all these billionaires. It's not that. It's
no Alabama. I mean,
their normal fans, whether it's alumni or just regular fans, give a lot of money, and they all give. Like FSU has hundreds of thousands of alumni. Like literally 3% of their alums give money. Like that's not. It's the opposite. Like
I never gave a dime to the Qs.
Exactly. Most fans don't. Most people move on to graduate. Oh, I love college, and then they go live their life.
They're making enough money off these kids now. Do they need my money too? Get the fuck out of here! What are you kidding me?
The reason they have so much money,
the DeForest Endowment. What the hell is that?
It's that their fans dedicate an absurd proportion of their money toward sports, whereas the rest of us are like, yeah, okay.
Let's get to Scoop, man. He's coming up here. Scoop Skolnick, 5 Reasons Sports Network. He does his own thing at like 8:00, so has limited time. So we want to have our conversation with Scoop Skolnick later on. Brett Telsler, the agent of the Stars, much more on the agenda here. And we were talking about this earlier this morning. These 2:30 for 30s I saw. Fascinating if you're a sports fan and you like good sports stories. Both were great, really, really well done. One was on Felipe Lopez and the other Brothers in Exile on the Hernandez brothers, Levon and El Duque. Really good footage, too. I mean, where they got all of this stuff out of Cuba was just incredible. All right, back with Scoop Skolnick in a moment. Now that. The time. 7:42.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Can't fake caring. Women can sense this immediately. You don't really care. You didn't really want to do any of this.
We now return to the Defo Show.
The Mustang says she doesn't really talk like that. Anyway, welcome back to the show. And we want to get to this gentleman right away because he's got his own business to run and is kind enough and generous enough to spend some time with us here on a Defo show. Ethan Scoop Skolnick, of course, 5 Reasons Sports Network. He's all over virtually everything. I have to try and settle or have you weigh in, Ethan, on an argument here that I'm having with Mike Lubie about the Miami Heat. Okay, because I believe this is a ridiculous sporting contention that you would blame a guy who wasn't necessarily known for this type of hustle for hustling. And he blames Tyler Hero for getting hurt because he should have never been diving for this loose ball.
I think if you're not used
Now,
to it,
it's not like he was Dennis Rodman. I don't know how you were about it. I mean, there were certain things I wasn't doing, no matter how anxious I was to win or prove that I was a worthy team player. I wasn't diving headfirst into the front row of chairs that are immovable, to maybe save a ball that was going out of bounds. It was like, okay, it was off me, your ball. What do you think? I mean, are people on 5 Reasons? I'm sure that was, brought up many, many times. And what the fuck is this guy doing diving for a loose ball when he's our only viable and reliable shooter, and third option on offense? What do you think, Ethan? What was he wrong to do that?
I think it's all based on what you thought about Tyler beforehand. Honestly, I think that's what colors this. It's funny because Pat came out and actually said that he's a get on the floor type guy, but maybe he's going to tell Tyler next time don't do it with a shooting hand. I think Lubie's being ridiculous. Honestly,
Thank you very much.
I'm just going to say that I'm never going to blame a guy for hustling. I don't think it's fake hustle in the first playoff game. I really don't. Like, I mean, what is he trying to prove to anybody? I think he didn't use maybe the best judgment by going down with his shooting hand, but again, it's an instinctual type thing. I mean, he's trying to make a play. And then what happens ultimately is, and I said this last night on 5 on the Floor, because we actually discussed this. Not quite the same way Lubie did, but we discussed it.
It would be a common opinion that you would hear maybe out of 20% of Michigan fans.
Yeah, I think it's most of the Michigan fans that wanted him traded to begin with. I'm not casting that aspersion on you, Mike, but I'm just saying the majority of those who seem to be calling him injury prone because of that kind of wanted him to be traded to begin with. I would say. This idea of injury prone is always interesting to me because,
yes,
it becomes this, availability is a skill and all the rest of this, but there's different reasons for being unavailable, right? Like,
sure.
If it's a guy who doesn't condition himself and so he's got a bunch of hamstring and quad injuries and misses time because of that, or it seems like a guy like Zion who just doesn't give a damn, or it's a guy like Kawhi who seems to have his own sort of rules about, how he gets back, and then he's got maybe a degenerative condition, then, I think the term injury prone. I mean, even with Tua, like, like the head thing, the concussion thing, yes. Okay,
that's new, though. Yeah.
He seems to be prone to it. But, like, the fact that he broke his finger, like, on an offensive lineman, like, that's not injury prone. That's just bad luck. Like,
right.
I think we need to distinguish those two things. So, I'm not going to blame Tyler for being injury prone. I just think Tyler's in a situation right now where he is the piece that the Heat would likely need to move to upgrade during Jimmy's window. It's just that simple. Like, there's nothing else to it, and I think people are making it out to be something else.
Yeah, I think of you Teal Green when you talk about the injury prone thing.
Yes.
When
he went down right.
Drafted by the Finns.
Right in front of me, Defo. Like, Teal, that was the very first day of training camp, and it's like we expected him to get hurt, and he did. That's injury prone. You understand?
I remember defending the draft pick, of course, because we were sucking up to Jimmy so much at the time. And
yes.
Well, and I thought his injuries were kind of, I guess you could call them somewhat, situational, circumstantial, whatever, that, he would pull a hamstring and he'd be out for a couple of games, whatever. It was nothing serious. And then, he tears like an anterior cruciate as he was signing his contract and getting up from the desk. And you're like, oh, fuck, I look like a fool. But what can you do? It wouldn't be the first or the last time. But
not as much as Jimmy did. So
yeah. All right, so I'm not the draftnik that you and Luby are, but I'm interested in it, of course, because it's part of the business, and it's become, much more integrated into things that people pay attention to, and I kept thinking this. I mean, it was like the Brady Quinn thing with the Dolphins many years ago, and I'm not a big Jay Billis fan. In fact, if he never spoke again or appeared on TV, I wouldn't be upset by it at all. Yet, and he kept saying that Cam Whitmore, every pick was going to be Cam Whitmore. How did they not take Cam Whitmore? What is the reason that he's falling?
Right.
And I'm thinking that, maybe this is one of those weird deals where at number 18, you're getting a guy that could have gone in the top 5 in some people's opinion. So I was actually thinking that when Adam Silver got up there, he was going to say with the number 18 pick, the Miami Heat take Cam Whitmore. Did you have any kind of sentiment like that? Or were you zeroing in on Lubie? To his credit, Lubie Brown actually mentioned Yaquez as a guy that they probably were interested in.
I wouldn't say zero. We were discussing it for sure. I mean, when he dropped for a couple of reasons. One, like you mentioned, he was projected to be top 5, top 6 pick. Also, he's a Villanova guy, and Miami likes Villanova guys. Eric Spoelstra said that specifically. But then when you kind of dove into it a little bit more, you understood maybe why they didn't do it, because the reasons that he fell, and one might have been injury related. We really haven't gotten the total story on that, but the other was that his workouts weren't particularly good, I guess, and there was some concern about commitment. At first, there was some, this conversation more so about sort of being an introvert, but then it was kind of like he didn't really put a lot of effort into these things. If that's the case, the Heat are likely going to stay away. I think the other issue with it was that, I don't think they worked him out. The Heat worked him out specifically because I don't think they thought he was going to get to them. And just to be honest, when they've done that before, when a player slipped to them, they've had mixed results. Caron Butler obviously was a home run pick at 10, slipped to them in 2002. Nobody thought he was going to be there at 10. And so that was a total no-brainer. But there was so much background on Caron at that stage that it was kind of like, okay, this is the type of character person and everything else you would want in your organization beyond just the skill level. But then Justice fell to them at number 10.
I knew you were going to mention him, and I was thinking that's worse than the fact that this Bee Gees song is stuck in my head ever since I watched Saturday Night Fever the week or so ago.
Yeah. Justice, because I think they would have taken Devin Booker, but then Justice fell to them, and so they ended up making that pick. And so I think there's a little bit in the back of maybe their minds, like, don't take the guy just because he fell to us,
right?
To make the splash pick. So, the thing about Yaquez is this: if you look at where they are with their cap situation, which we just did, we did 3 episodes this weekend, but the last one we did was really depressing. If you look at their cap and tax situation,
wow,
and their lack of flexibility.
I tend to ignore that aspect. Like, they'll find a way to do it. Sell a cruise ship, do something. Yeah.
Andy needs. Houdini act like you've never seen before, and I don't even know if if he's capable, but I just don't know if it's even possible when you look at what they're looking at right now. So what you need is playable guys at this stage. And so you can't have $3.5 million on your sheet, which if you're looking at with luxury tax gets multiplied for a guy who's just going to sit the whole year. And because I asked Adam Simon about the fact that he's 22. He said, well, we had the rest of our basket of guys with 19, but I think they were always going to lean towards the more ready guy this time, particularly because, they pretty much had a red shirt year with Jovic. So we don't know if they're going to have a second redshirt year, if he's even still here. And so you wanted somebody who right away you thought could be a back-end rotation player. And I think that played into this because this kid has NBA-ready skills. And so I feel like even if he doesn't exactly know what he's doing at first, you can put him in a rotation at the back end of it this year, and he'll run around and hustle and score some by accident. And I kind of feel like that's what they were looking for.
Well, after being out in L.A. for a few years, I always have at least a passing interest in UCLA basketball and seeing where they're at. And I watch this guy. He plays through his senior year. He was good when he got there. And he has, to call him the Mexican Jimmy Butler, it seems like somewhat of a fair comparison, right?
Yeah.
So, he has a similar type of game where a lot of his scoring opportunities are created with like multiple spin moves in the paint after driving in there, and he'll find a way to get a shot up, and he's fairly efficient at converting them. I guess the suspect aspect is 3-point shooting, which I don't think he's horrendous. I mean, I've seen him be effective there. So, a worthwhile pick. Do you think this guy will see much playing time this year?
I think it depends how the roster shakes out, but I do see him getting time. Yes, and I actually think he's going to be really interesting at Summer League because I feel like he's going to be more ready to play than some of these other guys, and so he's going to pop at Summer League. I'm actually going to go to Vegas for that because I feel like they are that team they're going to put together at Summer League is going to be interesting to watch with him and Jovic and Kane and Orlando Robinson. It's going to be like a couple of years ago where they had Hero and Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn on that team. I think they're going to roll over people. And so I feel like he's going to be fun to watch out there. And I do think he'll play some this year.
Nice job there, Ethan, finding a way to go to Vegas.
I had to ask the boss.
Yeah, I'm sure.
For an extended period of time, yeah.
So look, it's fun to talk about all these other things, but there's one thing that's swirling right now around the Heat, and it's the only thing that's swirling right now around the Heat. The tax thing doesn't get involved in it, but it feels like a lot of these guys that they want to keep or may cost them may be involved in this one thing. Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers, it's funny, a lot of people are getting annoyed by it because it feels like we all know the answer. We all know what's going to happen, and both sides are just sort of, sorry for my language, dicking around. I've seen you say a lot of this more, or the 5 reasons account, which I feel like comes from Ethan Scoop.
That's me, yeah. Sorry to give away the ghost.
He's unmasked.
I mean, it's not all me. We have a couple other people posting
I can tell when
memes and stuff, but it was mostly me.
I can tell when you're typing, and it's like you talking to Dame, going, "Listen, Dame, we get it. It's okay. It's time." Like doing Google hunting, It's not your fault. Like. Does it feel like that's really what's going to happen here? Like, to me, after they drafted and they're clearly going young, and no one's falling for their trades of young guys to give away a superstar. Like, is this really what's going to end up happening at some point? And do you see it happening this offseason, or do they really wait to the trade deadline, even though it feels like we all know the answer here?
I mean, we know what should happen, but it doesn't mean we know the answer. Those are two different things. I mean, we know that they should trade him, and we know that he should ask for a trade. It benefits both sides, I believe, to do it now rather than wait for Dame to potentially get hurt in the first half of the season in his age 33 year and then try to recoup, or for him to kind of wait where maybe the options that he wants to go may not be as available. Like, there's no reason to wait on this thing, but it doesn't mean they won't. I mean, teams have done that before. I mean, you look at Toronto, just the example of Kyle Lowry at the trade deadline a couple of years ago. Masai held him when he could have gotten better packages than he ended up getting the next year. So, I mean, teams do it. And there is that sort of sentimental pull with him. And, it's kind of like, just, do one more thing and you'll keep me. And then, they make one more move. Maybe they re-sign Jeremy Grant and they trade one of the young guys for one more vet. And all of a sudden let's roll it back. I don't think Miami is counting on it definitely happening. Like, this idea that the Heat know, I don't believe they know. I think they're taking a calculated gamble is what they're doing. But it also doesn't mean necessarily, even if he leaves, that it's going to be, that they're going to trade him to Miami. I mean, if you just look at the Heat's assets, we like I said, we did 3 episodes of 5 on the Floor. We did one where they ranked all their assets. We did one where we went to go all in for Dame, and we did one last night where we went into their tax and luxury tax situation pretty specifically with Brian Goins. I mean, all 3 of them tell you this: like, Miami does not have the best offers, and they do not have the best cap sheet. It's okay in terms of offers. Okay, Brooklyn could offer more, and so if he can be convinced to go play with Mikal Bridges there and say, okay, maybe. It's not exactly where I wanted to go, but maybe the situation, it's a big market. Could he be convinced? Maybe. And the reality is, I mean, he doesn't have a no trade clause. So, I mean, they can trade him there if they want. Kawhi didn't want to go to Toronto when he went to Toronto from San Antonio, ended up winning a championship. I mean, so sometimes Kyrie certainly didn't want to go to Dallas. He wanted to go to LA this last offseason. The guy who had control was Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal decided not to entirely exercise that control because Phoenix operated as it emerged as a legitimate option for him. Lillard could be the same thing, and he doesn't even have a no trade. So I just feel the Heat are taking a calculated risk. I feel it is worth it. Okay. Largely because there's not a hell of a lot else they can do anyway. Like, it would be one thing, like Heat fans, like, you're going to miss out on all these free agents. They can't sign any free agents. Like, if you look at their tax and cap sheet, they said, like, people like Brook Lopez. I'd love to get Brook Lopez too, but Brook Lopez isn't taking $5 million. I mean, it's just, it's kind of a, it's kind of okay, might as well roll the dice on the guy who'd be the best possible fit with Jimmy and Bam. Like, that's, you do it, but I'm not guaranteeing anything at this stage. I don't think it's cute, but I mean, we made fun of it. But, like, playing Welcome to Miami in the background, or Jimmy trolling while, he's at Neymar's gender reveal this weekend. And I mean, like, I don't, this is kind of silliness. The reality is Portland should trade him. Dame should ask for a trade. Miami makes the most sense. It does not mean it will happen.
Okay.
They're more likely to sign Felipe Lopez, who we were talking about earlier this morning.
Wait, are you talking about the former St. John's guard?
Yeah.
Yeah, Felipe
I
Lopez.
I saw him play in high school. He was unbelievable in high school.
He was great. I watched a 30 for 30. I think it's been around. I'm not sure if
I think it has.
a while back, but real interesting story. Very compelling. And, I did some of the games, 2 of the years that Felipe Lopez was at St. John's when they played Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I was calling the games on the radio, and I remember thinking, because I saw him, in his sophomore year, I believe, for the first time. And I was asking myself, like everybody else was, what's the big deal about this guy? He sucks. Yeah. I think he had like one of those Iverson pro shooting nights where he was 6 for 27 and, ended up with a bunch of points. But, you're saying that this guy's a liability. And then he bounced back and, he had a real good story all the way through and became like a real fulfilling, type of, he lived a very fulfilling life and still is, which is good. I don't want to kill him off here, but Brook Lopez would be somebody that I would consider, and, it's not happening. So very good. Ethan, I know you got to run. So we appreciate it as always. On top of it, I mean, I don't even know if Rene Descartes could figure out what the Heat cap situation is. So, that you would dive into that's bold. I mean, that really is.
It makes your head hurt.
You have to be a real mathematician, and the numbers are so astronomical that it's even tougher to play with. It's not like you're trying to multiply. If you had an exacta that paid $28.60 6 times, how much did you make? But that has to be a real.
Jeff, I'll leave you with this on the cap situation, how it's blown up. The big three, when they came together in 2010, Dwayne, LeBron, and Chris made a combined $43 million their first year.
Yeah.
The Suns' big three of Durant, Beal, and Booker right now makes 129. Their 3-man average is 43 million. So it has literally tripled the price of premium talent in 13 years. That's what you're looking at. So,
that's why the NBA has such close relations with China.
Yes.
Nobody else can talk to these guys.
Exactly.
That doesn't get publicized too much there. Adam Silver never mentions, hey, thanks to our Chinese brothers and sisters.
No.
And now we'll have the draft. All right. Ethan, we love you, man. Thanks so much. Always
Thanks,
a pleasure.
Guys.
Oh, very good. Ethan Scoop Skolnick, ladies and gentlemen. So he doesn't buy your argument, Lubie. I mean, come on.
I haven't blamed him in that regard. I think it's, again, he's not known as heart and hustle guy. So it's like, look, you're happy when he finally does it, but it's like, yeah, if you've never done it, the first time
you're not accustomed to that kind of thing.
You're probably going to hurt yourself. And lo and behold, he hurt himself, But again, I was one of those guys that was okay trading him for better talent.
Were you okay diving head first on wood, Lubie? Because that wasn't my bag. Head first on wood. And as a kid, I probably had more balls in terms of my, recreational athletic performances because we would slide on cement. That was a mark of manhood. Even more so than your bar mitzvah when I was growing up in Brooklyn. Would you slide on cement to beat a tag in a punch ball game or a stick?
I wasn't, but you guys were crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you're tearing your leg up here. I mean, it's not like you're not going to get some kind of road rash. May as well just, slide a motorcycle along I-95 at that point. But sliding on cement was big. But we never wore shorts growing up. That was considered to be somewhat unmanly, if you will. I don't know, a more delicate way of putting that. But, that was the big thing. In the 50s, it was a much more simple world, right? I mean, things were far more black and white. There were less gray areas. Everything was defined. But, that was a signature of manhood the first time you would slide on cement. And it was kind of like literally like breaking your cherry. Where you're thinking, wow, I'm a man now, right? And the big older kids would accept you; they would pick you on their team, and that was that was a big transition. All right, we're going to come back with more. Thanks to Scoop Skolnick for joining us. We're going to talk a little football with Brett Tesser, the agent of the Stars. Is he free of his duties as an NHL analyst, or do you want to run by
I don't have
the
anything.
annual awards? Because your man Matt Tkachuk is a long shot of the finalists to win the MVP. Matt Tkachuk.
I mean, his regular season wasn't as good as some others, so I don't. And they don't.
Connor McDavid is like beyond odds on to win that MVP trophy. But what other awards are very meaningful? The Vezina obviously would be one. That's not going to Sergei. He didn't find his vision until he was in the postseason, and then unfortunately he lost it again. But we only have one guy in contention for any of this stuff. All right.
I mean, they were an 8th seed for a reason, or 7th seed.
The Norris Trophy is best defenseman. We have nobody there. The Vezina, no way. I mean, that would be far fetched, would it not? The what is this one? The Selke Trophy for best defensive forward.
Okay.
Got nobody there. Jack Adams Award, Coach of the Year, not involved. The Lady Byng, a gentlemanly player, which I don't know, is that a good award to win in the NHL? I mean, it's an award of some distinction, and then it kind of, because it's named after a woman, does that see? What does it suggest? I don't know. You're the nicest guy in the game. We're not involved there either. And then what else? The Hart Trophy is the MVP. Connor McDavid, Matthew Tkachuk, and Dave Pasternak of the Boston Bruins, who had a phenomenal season. And naturally, they're up for many of the awards here. It's kind of like the Oscars. One movie's up for everything. But they accomplished nothing, Lubie. Why? Because it was a Cinderella story, my friend. A Cinderella story. I don't know. I mean, in a lot of other seasons, Tkachuk could have easily been the MVP. If you were talking about, the definition of the award, what the criteria are, McDavid, Edmonton had a good year. They ended up losing to Vegas, which I think caught some people by surprise in the Western Conference semifinals. Edmonton Oilers, they had like a power play that was scoring at some ridiculous ratio in the postseason, like over 50%, I believe. And, and McDavid was sensational. What did he have, like 100 goals? He was unbelievable. So, yeah, statistically, he's so far buried Tkachuk that even though Tkachuk, what was his team without Matt Tkachuk?
Oh, no. You saw. They lost by like 12.
Yeah.
It was like that.
They were, I don't know. Could you say they were the Heat without Jimmy Butler? Because didn't they win a game without Jimmy Butler?
The Heat without Jimmy Butler were better than the Panthers without Tkachuk. The Heat were able to. Now they eventually weren't winning a finals without real Jimmy Butler, but they were able to. No, they lost that game versus the Knicks without Butler, but they almost beat the Knicks in New York without Jimmy Butler. The Panthers without Tkachuk lost. Like, we're losing by like 6.
Are no people into this? I think this is some of the better baseball that I've watched of late, including the Marlins, who have been on a bit of a run and now find themselves 11 games over 500 and on the road for what could be, you would have to say that this will be a real test, a litmus test of whether or not the team is legit. They've been beating up on some soft competition, right? They're playing the A's, the Pirates, the Nationals, which is part of what you need to do if you're going to establish that you're a team that is growing, a team that is evolving. You have to be able to beat these dog meat teams and beat them consistently. Now, in baseball, you're not necessarily going to win every one, but they did well enough, right? They blew that one game to the Pirates over the weekend, but bounced back and won the next 2, even though they were begging to give away both of those games. Because they didn't hit worth a lick in yesterday's game. They got the 1 home run from this Jonathan Davis, and I think that was like his 2nd home run. He's only been up. I don't think he's been with the team the whole season. Jonathan Davis hitting like 265, a couple of homers, but seems to be a real ball player. But they are managing to win now. They go against the Red Sox, who are 1 game over 500 in last place in the AL East, but all the teams are above 500 in the AL East. And they have to go to Fenway to do it. And then they play the Braves in a weekend series. What do you think? I mean, the Braves are on fire. The Braves are 9-1 in their last 10.
The Marlins have played this well, and they're still 6 games back. They're literally losing ground.
Isn't that incredible? Yes.
They played
But
really.
they have, what? Are they a half game up or something like that? Or a game up in the wild card chase?
Yes.
And then that represents a lot because there are, what, 3 wild card teams, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know how close it is in behind them, but we'll see. It would certainly be fun to be in a pennant race of some sort.
Be great.
And you would have the advantage. I mean, think about this. Here's that. My favorite. I mean, the giant letters at the top of the sports eye chart are what? IF. It's not just the big E. That is the big E of sports talk, is it not? IF. If somehow, how far-fetched is this, Lubie? That's what we need your opinion on. Sandy Alcantara straightens himself out. I mean, he gives up. I remember we were at the Even Keel Fish Shack, and they were playing like a 12 o'clock game or something. Jim Sarney came out there, and we I don't know why we didn't get the game on the television there, but they had like one screen. It's not really like a sports, viewing place per se. And it was on some kind of sporting event, a soccer game.
Yeah, it was like the ESPN2 or some kind of international soccer friendly or something. I don't know. It wasn't local.
How do you feel when you walk in? I mean, this is not a sports bar, so it's in no way meant to be, any kind of denigration of their taste in putting up viewing things on the television screen. Nobody was really paying any attention to it anyway because the food's so damn good there, right? And your face is actually in the plate the entire time, hoping to stave off a Mayo attack before you get a chance to even taste whatever's on the table there. But when you walk into a place and there's a soccer game on, or multiple screens with soccer, and it's not the World Cup, you say to yourself, what, Lubie? Because that's all going to change pretty soon.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be on constantly. This messy stuff. I'm actually reading reports.
Do we succumb? I mean, do we succumb to Messi mania here?
I don't know about succumb to
You
Messi,
will, because you're easily influenced. You are.
I'm definitely going to pay attention. I'm definitely intrigued. I don't know enough about any of it. Like Austin, who we've had on a couple of times, posts stuff. So I'll read it.
I have no idea, though, what comprises and or what constitutes qualifications to be a champion in the MLS, or what comprises their playoff system or their regular season.
Well,
what the hell are they doing?
Well, and my interest still isn't there because, like, I'll read these posts and scan for the word Messi. If I don't see the word Messi in it, I don't read the post. So, like, you would think I'd be boning up on all this stuff to be ready. No, I'm not that interested in it. I just want to see Messi play in that jersey. I really don't give a shit about the league or the team. Like, and I don't know if I ever will, to be brutally honest, but I do care about Messi and him playing on that team. Like, I mean, that's really where I am with that. And I know Sarney wants them to be.
No, I have to pay tribute to Sarney, too, because I found out last night through Jim Sarney that I did not get ESPNU on this new cable system I'm on here, because I was going to tune in for a second to women's college water polo, which I thought Jim would be bringing up on the program today. And I thought, you know what, I'll go ahead and have an answer to his question about women's college water polo, but I couldn't find it, even though it was listed in the guide there. I didn't get that channel. He's talking about the women's soccer World Cup. I mean, that Rapinoe chick is on the team again, right?
Oh, that my problem is I don't know this group anymore.
Yeah.
Where's
Mia Hamm? Is she still around? No.
I followed it even to the group after because Abby Wambach, Hope Solo, Morgan. So I followed that group.
Brandy Chastain, right? I mean, she was the one with the sports bra. It was fantastic.
She was with Mia Hamm.
That was one of the great sporting gestures of all time, was it not? Very memorable, right? When she did the soccer slide after scoring on a penalty kick and ripped open her shirt. And you thought, my God, what is this woman doing? And she had the sports bra on, which she just happened to be. How did she not get a long-lasting endorsement for that sports bra?
Maybe she did.
That should have made her zillions of dollars, that one act alone. Holy Alexei Lalas. What am I talking about here? If Lalas didn't have red hair, would anybody remember? I mean, if he didn't look like Bill Walton out there, would anybody remember him from his many World Cup appearances and American team, performances? Pretty good commentator, no? Do people like him or not? Alexei Lalas.
They're the commentator, but him as a player, I don't remember anything.
Oh, he was good. He was a defender. It wasn't bad, I don't think. I mean, I'm no judge of soccer talent, but let's face it. I think Messi, though, they're going to do a Red Sea defense on Messi, I believe. Was it Phil Shane that was saying that this kid's going to take a pounding? He's hardly a kid. He's 35 years old. But are they really going to, like, don't you think he gets the Gretzky treatment? I mean, did anybody ever put a hit on Wayne Gretzky? And if they did, would they not have been arrested immediately by the local authorities?
But it wasn't the other team backing off. The Kings and before that, the Oilers always had like a Gretzky protector. So like either they would be protecting Gretzky, or if you hit Gretzky, then they would come and beat the shit out of you. Like I don't think it was other teams going, "Oh, let's not hurt Wayne."
Yeah, they would get a goon and teach him to skate from professional wrestling.
Yeah, I don't think like it was Austin who was like, no, they're going to come after him. Yeah, I think they're going to come after him, but that doesn't mean they're going to get to him. Like the dude literally is used to people coming after him. That's not new. Like his whole life is spent with 4 guys trying to tackle the shit out of him and his little ass busting through. That's what's impressive about Messi is he takes on contact and now he has the flopping thing down, but a lot of time he doesn't want to flop because he knows he can get through and get a goal or get a pass.
Yeah, he's great at like dribbling through traffic, man. This guy's great. All right, so we're gonna have to maybe move off of that stance a little bit. It's gonna take a while for me to accept that when you walk into a sports bar, soccer is on every screen, and you're asking yourself, is there nothing else, please? Speaking of holy Jim Sarney, soccer on every screen. But this Women's World Cup, are we favored as Americans? Because there should be some national pride being taken in this, should there not, Mike Lubitz? Are we just being the usual ignorant slobs that we are when it comes to A, the game of soccer, and B, women's sports in general? Because I don't feel like we ignore women's sports here on the program, even though Jim would desperately refute that.
I mean, what do you want me to talk about? No one watches.
Yeah, nobody knows. And honestly, it's a shame. Nobody knows any of these LPGA golfers that were involved in their PGA championship. And you know, who won it? Chinese girl, okay? So I can honestly tell you, and I watch some of this stuff, I know nothing about this woman. Like zero. Whose fault is that? Is it the public for ignoring it? Is it the people that try to publicize it? Or is it just that there really is no interest in the game, Lubie? Zero. Which I would sort of put my soccer interest at that level, but how can we ignore this story, Lubie? That Lionel Messi is going to be on the Inter Miami CF Football Club, which has been just dog meat since its inception. Short of dressing David Beckham for games, what else could they have done at this point? Were they gathering any momentum as a last place team? I don't think so.
Oh, they have Messi. I mean, people are waiting for Messi, and then they'll magically get on.
No, but I mean, without this move, where are they?
No one would have given a shit ever.
Yeah.
Sarni didn't want them to matter. They won't matter.
You've
That's why they're
soggy hot dogs at Lockhart Stadium. What was Lockhart Stadium with the 8,000 other people who were foolish enough to ante up for season tickets? I don't know. I mean, we shouldn't, disparage this because we know nothing about it. But it'll be on every screen from now on. I don't know why. And we all, we got this whole thing started talking about Sandy Alcantara. And remember, Jim was watching the game on his phone there at the Even Keel, and he gave us, kind of a disappointed look and said, he just gave up 5 runs in the second inning.
What I will say is he went 7 that game, and the score.
He did bounce back and hold them in check.
So the fact that he was able to keep them in check, and I think they either won that game or they were really close.
It's a turning point, my friend. No, I believe they lost the game.
They lost, but I think they made sure. I think they lost 5-2 or something.
Yeah,
that he made. At least he was able to
6-3. I believe was the final 6-3.
Look at you. So at least he was able to hold them in it, and he showed some progress. I'd love to have him back. He's a freaking Cy Young Award winner. He was the only thing good about their season last year. So now that they have all this positivity, I'd love for him to be a part of it. Like, it sucks. I'm not mad at him. I feel bad for him that he's been great for like 3 straight years, and he's having a tough time when the team finally caught up to him. Like, I feel bad.
What is it? I don't know. Some old salty dog scout out there, probably it would be good to get on a show and go, that's his mechanics. You can see the way he holds that four-seamer. Just not the same. All right, we're coming back. Brett Tesser, the agent of the stars. Will Dalvin Cook be a Dolphin? They keep dangling that in front of us.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Well, Dalvin's doing it. Dalvin did a podcast at the end of last week where he specifically mentioned the Dolphins. He talked about how he had talked to them. He talked about wanting to play for them. And he talked about their system fits him perfect. So it's like normally guys only do that when a deal's imminent, but that was Thursday. Like it's been the whole weekend and still like I don't know.
You don't then turn around and sign with like the Houston Texans.
It would just be weird. It would be.
That,
I mean, it may happen, but it'd be weird.
All right, we're coming back with Brett Tester, the agent of the stars. Well, you know, we're not that far away, Lubie. Dog days of summer. Well, we filled them with stars in our eyes, looking at the Miami Marlins as they continue their assault in Major League Baseball, writing a big Fernando Mania story there with this Yuri Perez. It hasn't caught that kind of fire or illumination yet. It's not like a nationwide thing when Perez is pitching, which it has been with other guys, you know, that have had that kind of limelight. Dontrell kind of, you know, he was a national story by the time he got done with that rookie year. That was great. The Bird, you couldn't miss him. I mean, if he was on any kind of national telecast, Mark the Bird Fidrich and Fernando Mania, really, I mean, you talk about a city being captured up in something like we were very briefly with the Heat and the Panthers run, and of course, UM and FAU. The whole city, I mean, that's all anybody talked about. It was great, Fernando Mania. You couldn't wait for him to pitch. Same thing like Dontrell, right? Couldn't wait for him to pitch. All right, we're coming back with more. Brett Tester, the agent of the stars, is going to join us here in just a moment. Jeff DeForest and Mike Lubitz with you. 12 o'clock today, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Mayo, I mean, he could probably just off like 2 or 3 of the meals he had over the weekend could fill the whole hour, no? Oh, easily, man. What are those bacon things you had hanging at the New York Yankee Steakhouse?
I don't know.
It's at the Coconut Creek Casino. That is a great place, especially if you can get a freebie, which Mayo managed to wrangle. So we'll get into it with him about that later on, 12 o'clock on Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Back with more in a moment. Now that. He keeps sending me pictures of his losing tickets, too. I mean, is that getting annoying to you?
Yes.
I don't care that you lost, Mike. I mean, I got plenty. You want me to bring my stack home that I save? I throw them in the garbage in disgust at the end of each session. I remind myself as I see how thick the pack is that I didn't hit enough to compensate for this. It's 8:20.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. Make the right choice for your home. Call Choice Mortgage today.
Simple pleasures of this job, the way a stadium sounds when one of my players performs well on the field, the way we are meant to protect them in health and in injury. Less work, more attention, caring for them, caring for ourselves in the games.
The agent to the stars, the one and only Brett Tester.
Welcome back to the show. Good to have you with us here on this Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday. Very exciting weekend. A lot of activity, all kinds of different stuff. Filling the time here, the gap between the end of the 2 Cinderella runs that we had with the Panthers and the Heat and the start of training camp in the National Football League. We welcome to the show, as always, And he was our own Don Cherry here throughout the hockey season. Did a great job for us with very illuminating commentary and inside stuff on the Florida Panthers. The great agent to the stars, Brett Tesser, joins us here on the show. Brett, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, thanks.
What was that fancy schmancy place I saw you and Lonnie in Wisconsin, man? You guys, is there like one high-end restaurant there or many?
No, there's a lot. This is where all the rich people from Chicago come vacation in summer and everything else. So, no, lots of good restaurants. You got some steakhouses, got some. That was more like a farm style, modern farm to table type place. So, yeah, no, food's good up here. You guys should come visit sometime.
All right. Now, I have this image in my head of you eating iguana in Honduras or something. That was you, wasn't it? I mean, did you really do it?
Yeah, that was something we tried a few weeks ago, and a very unique and probably one-off experience for me. I'll try anything pretty much.
Yeah. I don't even think Mike Mayo is eating iguana on the show.
So the problem with iguana, it's not so much just the idea that you're eating iguana. That doesn't really help.
Pretty disgusting,
but,
yes.
You know, the thing is, though, it tastes actually kind of like chicken, but the problem is there's so many bones. Like, just like every bite, you're spitting out like 100 little pieces of bone, and so it's a little bit, yeah. So it's a little bit inconvenient to eat that, but again, it was worth trying.
I didn't realize you had like an inner Anthony Bourdain. A desire to seek this stuff out. Were there any alternatives on the menu, or it was like iguana? I mean, it's kind of like when we went to Minnesota, and the only thing that was on the menu was walleye. I mean, even the ice cream was like walleye ice cream. Were there options? I mean, could you get like a steak?
Yeah, could have had shrimp, could have had chicken, but I eat that stuff all the time. You can go into Land Lubbers and get that stuff.
Right.
You can't go there and you can't go in there and get iguana. So gotta get it while you can. Got to try it while it's there. And so we did it. And like I said, I don't think. Let's just say the iguanas in my backyard. Even
They're
during,
safe.
even during the winter months when they fall out of the trees, they don't need to worry about hitting my grill.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Every now and then I would find one on my grill before I actually started grilling. And Lubie was there the time I found an iguana in my hot tub at the old Defo household. And I was just about to step in there, and it's like, what the fuck is this? It was unbelievable. They were a bit of a public nuisance, but I'm a fan of iguanas. A lot of people hate them and despise them. I guess they do create some kind of mess, but I don't know if I'd ever venture into eating one. And you can spare me the alligator bites on the menu as well. All right, let's bite into this. I mean, a couple of weeks ago when you were on, and this was before this was worldwide news and known to everybody, you had sent me a text prior to your appearance, and I didn't get a chance to look at it until after the show. But you were saying, you could ask me. I have some inside steam on this Dalvin Cook situation, possibly becoming a Dolphin. Now, that was almost a month ago. Will Dalvin Cook, in your opinion, be a Dolphin? Is there any way, to navigate us, through that story and see how it ends up?
Due to the nature of the running back market and the rude awakening that he and his agent were in for once he became a free agent, well after the start of free agency, I may add, because if Dalvin Cook had been a free agent at the start of free agency, there's no doubt he would have gotten paid more than some of the other quality running backs that got what they got, which in many cases was still beneath what you would expect based on past trends. But in this case, you're talking about a guy who's getting slightly up there in age, a guy who's had some different injury things which never help. Again, especially at that position, that's a big part of the reason why that position's getting devalued, because teams are looking at how much time some of these guys are missing each season, and so that's part of the reason why teams feel like it's safer to maybe go with a committee. And so in the case of Dalvin, the reason why he hasn't signed anywhere, has nothing to do with the fact besides that he hasn't seen an offer that he likes. And, they could talk about finding the right situation, wanting to win a ring. Yeah, that's all fine and good. Everybody wants that. But at the end of the day, as a player in this league, you got to go to the situation that offers you the most financial security possible. And the fact is, they're obviously not finding any offers that they had hoped for or expected. And usually as time goes on, that does not get better. Usually it gets worse, especially when you look at guys that are still unemployed out there. You've got Zeke, you've got Hunt. There's another couple quality backs that are still out there looking for work. So, from the team standpoint, it's definitely a buyer's market. And I think at this point, if your attitude is you can always take a bad deal later, I think it probably behooves Dalvin and his agent to wait and see at the start of training camp or maybe even into the preseason if there's a certain back that goes down somewhere and suddenly a team becomes a little more desperate. As far as him ending up on the Dolphins, I never felt like that was a strong possibility. Just when you do the math on it, I mean, they've got two running backs who are both very good players in that system. One of them happening to be my client, who both got over $2.5 million of guaranteed money. And then they draft another one, what was it, second or third round, who was rated as one of the top 5 or so backs in the draft. So, there's only so many balls to go around. What's the point of drafting that guy? And what's the point of signing the 2 other guys that they signed to extensions or to new contracts, I should say, to turn around and throw off their salary cap by paying a 4th running back big money. But, if Dalvin's getting absolutely nothing out there, if it's a situation where they're looking at deals much closer to minimum than what he had been expecting to make, then in that scenario, maybe a team would kick the tires or take a flyer on anybody of his ability and production. But as far as is that really what the Dolphins need, and is it really where they need to allocate their limited cap resources, it never made sense to me.
Well, and that's the thing. Well, for the Dolphins, I mean, look, if they get him for cheap, of course, you would take a guy like that. But what I find interesting is we heard the saying, patience is a virtue in life, but sometimes in these situations, yes, waiting around may get you more money, may get you a better situation. But I would be curious if, like you just said, waiting around has you missing opportunities. But then you also just said maybe waiting around is the right move for him. Look, as an agent, if you had a client like this, because it feels like you are really good at getting your guys into situations where that are best for them, whatever the money is. Yeah, maybe you make more money up front, but if you're not going to play, it's not going to behoove you, then in the long run, you'll make less money. That's my thing for Dalvin. Like, if he can find the right situation, wouldn't it behoove him to take that now? Or is it just as a running back, the clock's always ticking, so you get as much money as you can?
Patience usually is a virtue in life, unless you're talking about the NFL after the free agency, where cap resources dry up by the minute. And ultimately you get to a point where you are now, where it is what it is, and the big money is long gone. And you typically, guys like Dalvin are not hitting the market in June. And so in the situations where that happens, or even in instances where you see good players get let go in September, right prior to the start of the season, because the team's found somebody younger, cheaper, healthier, whatever the case may be, in those instances, it just sort of forces the player and the agent to make the best out of a bad situation. Just do a short-term deal, do a very heavily incentive-weighted deal, and again, try to scrape together the most you can that season, and then try to hit it fresh the following year at the start of free agency when the money really is available. And then let's just see how the running back market trends next year, because again, this was clearly not a good year to be a running back hitting the market. So with hindsight, if I were Dalvin's agent, I think you probably, if you could go back, you might want to try to salvage the relationship with the Vikings. You may have wanted to have the opportunity to find out the most that they were willing to pay, and then reach out to other teams, get permission from them to reach out to other teams around the league to see if anybody would be willing to pay more. And then you can make an informed decision. And, again, chances are that if staying in Minnesota was an option, where obviously he had been a very talented and popular and productive player, I'd say that seeing what we're seeing now, it might have been in his best interest to try to stay there, because what's behind door number 2 is clearly not very appetizing.
All right, let's talk about Dalvin Cook as a little bit of a diversion from what I think is the more pressing issue. And, some people would be wondering, even though the acquisition of Jalen Ramsey you would think would be significant, and, you now have what could be, just an unbelievable secondary, which, I go back to the J.B. Brown days, which at different times has been a glaring weakness on the part of the Miami Dolphins. But, and you seemingly have improved your club. You did solidify your running back position, as you said, signing Mostert, drafting this kid in the 3rd round that's supposed to be really good, and what was a real find at that point in the draft. But how does Chris Greer sleep at night with the right side of the offensive line still unchanged? And is there somebody? I mean, back in the day, you used to be able to grab some guy out of the Canadian Football League or whatever, and maybe he could fill a role for you. But where is that answer for the Miami Dolphins? And is it a failure on their part, in your estimation, Brett Telsler, that it hasn't been addressed?
Yeah, it remains to be seen, just because I think Chris Greer is probably sleeping well at night, because if he weren't, he could have chosen to address that differently in the draft. He could have chosen to address that differently in free agency. And so, there's a good chance that they obviously are more familiar with their personnel than we are on the outside. I mean, we saw what we saw last season, and the offensive line certainly was not what you would call dominant, but they still managed to have a very productive offense as it related to yardage, as it related to passing, scoring, things like that. So it was a productive offense on paper, but it makes you wonder if, because of all the talent they had, they weren't as productive as they were in spite of the offensive line. And with improvement at that unit, I mean, the potential could be scary. And naturally, keeping Tua upright and keeping him on the field is of utmost importance to the team. So the thing about offensive line, especially the right side, you can add some veteran personnel later in the preseason as you approach cutdown prior to the season, because, you will see some veteran, aging, high-paid offensive linemen become available that maybe still have something in the tank that can come in there and step in if you're not liking what you're seeing from your guys up to that point. So that's always an option. It's always a short-term fix. But, that's something that I'm sure they're looking out for as well. And then there's always talented young linemen, too, who end up on practice squads, things like that you could try to pick off. So there's different ways it can be approached. I just hope that, again, whatever they end up doing, it ends up being an improvement from last season, as every team tries to do from last season. You want to get better at every position. I think that would be no exception. And, let's see how some of the younger guys continue to develop, guys coming from year 1 to year 2, guys coming from year 2 to year 3. That's a position more than any other on the field where if you do have a young, talented, developing guy, and, you've been watching him all through the off season, and you've been watching him through the mini camps and the OTAs and that stuff, that is a position where for certain guys, the light can go on and they could take a really big jump. So again, let's just hope that's the case with some of the guys they have.
All right, a couple of things to clear up for us, if you can, Brett Tester, and I always appreciate your time here. Off the track of the Miami Dolphins, do you believe there will be an emerging tendency in the league for players that are trying to adapt to new situations, maybe traded in the offseason or signed in a new place as a free agent, towards the experience of psychedelic mushrooms. When you look at the way that Aaron Rodgers has adapted to being a New York Jet. Do you, I mean, have you ever seen anything like this? Right? Everybody thought, "Wow, this guy's really going to find a whole new game and landscape in New York." But have you ever seen a guy adapt to new surroundings any more seamlessly and enjoyably than Aaron Rodgers is in New York City? He's got everything. It's amazing.
All I could say is if Aaron Rodgers is what helps the Jets win a Super Bowl, I think we should all try them.
You think the people that are predicting the Jets will win the Super Bowl are maybe ingesting a few too many?
Well, Aaron Rodgers is an all-time great, a truly unique, different kind of person, and a guy who's always kind of marched to his own drummer. And it seems like as the years have gone by, his eccentricities have only increased.
Yes.
And, let's just say that if I'm the New York Jets or a fan of the New York Jets, every time this guy opens his mouth or, attends a psychedelic convention or anything like that, I think you would have cause to become a little more concerned by the day. But the good news is, before you know it, we will be into training camp. And then it's all about football, and people aren't going to be paying attention to, any off the wall thing he says at that point. They're going to be more interested in how he's connecting with his receivers every day and into the regular season, because again, I personally love the Jets organization. I love the people in it. And obviously they're a rabid fan base. Jets fans are really like no other. It's sort of like a cult clique, there's not a ton of them, but when you meet someone who's a Jets fan, I mean, God bless them. They've suffered a lot. So
they're resigned to losing. There's no question. Yes.
It would be great. It would be great to see that organization make a serious push, because they really have assembled quite the defense, and they certainly have some pieces on offense. And so there's no doubt that, what you've seen in the past couple of years out of the quarterback position there, either with rookies, veterans, you name it, most notably Zach Wilson, you can't mess around when you feel like you have a team that only has one missing piece. And we're going to find out this season whether they were correct on what that missing piece was, because if Aaron Rodgers is that missing piece, and if Aaron Rodgers even performs at 85%, 80%, 70% of the Aaron Rodgers that you think of, it's still going to be a dramatic improvement from what they've had. And so as a fan of football, that situation is one this season that I'm probably more personally interested in just keeping an eye on and seeing how it turns out than any other.
All right, got great stuff as always, Brett Tesser, agent of the Stars. Still in Wisconsin, or are you back home?
No, we're still up here. We'll be here for a little bit. So,
summertime. Beautiful. And what are you being blasted with a heat wave there? Or?
It's been pretty warm, but now the concern is the smoke coming down from Canada, the air.
Oh yeah,
conditions. So hopefully the air quality conditions. So hopefully that improves, and but today's supposed to be a nice 70-degree breezy day. So maybe go out, get a round of golfing. It's a good time right now just because there's absolutely nothing going on at work. I do have one player who is visiting, a veteran player who's just gotten healthy, who is visiting with the team. So we'll see if maybe he gets picked up. And other than that, not too much doing.
All right. And it's good to hear, actually, that you've gone Roberto Duran on the iguana. And it's no mas. Status, yeah. I bet you were saying that to the waiter when he offered the second portion. No mas. All right. Excellent stuff, Brett Tesser. Very illuminating. And as always, a pleasure having you on the program. Enjoy the little summer stay out there. And we'll look forward, as we get closer to training camp, to more great conversations about the National Football League. Thanks so much for being with us.
All right, guys. Have a great week.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. The Dalvin Cook thing, man. So is that? I mean, if that's your biggest issue, you're in pretty good shape, aren't you? If you're thinking, oh, well, geez, if we can get this guy for some kind of minimum salary, why not put him on the roster there? Because we can shelve the rookie there for a year, and you still have Mostert and who's the guy that they acquired? What from?
Yeah, Wilson Jr., who's actually pretty good.
Yeah, from San Francisco, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, he was good. That was a decent tandem. If those two guys are your running backs, you're not. It's weird to see how the value of the running back position has been so heavily diminished to the point where running backs in the first round. I guess what there was one taken about midway through the first round.
Yes,
this year. Yeah,
Tibbs was massively overdrafted. The guy of Alabama, formerly of Georgia Tech.
Remember when that was like the biggest deal, man? I mean, we were so euphoric here when we got Sammy Smith, for God's sake.
I feel bad for running Smith. I mean, running back teams aren't invested because their lifespan is so short. Like,
how did they become so wildly interchangeable? I was reading about like Sony Michel re-signed. I think was it with the Chargers, one of the LA teams. Might have been the Rams. And I'm thinking that this guy, as a rookie, was lighting it up for Belichick. And now he's like a journeyman's journeyman.
They just hit a wall at age between 20 and 30. Like when most receivers can be getting into their prime at that age, and the offensive linemen, which is funny, they have as much contact as anyone. Offensive linemen can play into the mid to late 30s. Running backs get to 20, 29, and that's really their peak. So it's like to pay someone for the end of their career, organizations aren't going to do it. And you've seen marginal guys have near the same success as great running backs. So it's like, okay, why am I going to put a lot of money and a lot of draft picks into the same result?
I wish Jim Sarney wasn't, sort of gun shy about coming on the radio and doing TV here like we're doing now with the streaming, because you were having a wild argument on our chat line with Jim Sarney about the relative importance of reporting on women's sports.
I to tell me to watch something that no one watches, like that's my thing. It's not even men. Well, women don't watch women's sports. Well, why are people mad at men for not watching women's sports? Do you know any woman? Oh, with a high school? No, that's bullshit. I know high school. My niece is in high school. She doesn't ever talk about women's sports. Like no woman in my life ever talks about women's sports. So why is it my job to worry about women's sports when women themselves don't give a shit about women's sports? And it's not about existing. I'm all about it. Like, I'm all about women having an outlet to go play past high school.
Well, why isn't there a show that is exclusively dedicated to women's sports?
No one gives a shit. No one would watch it, or listen. Like, that's my thing. Like, I'm not a chauvinist. It's the opposite. I'm all about it.
I'm glad women play sports. I think I've always said this. I maintain it will to my grave that it was a real asset as a kid to be involved in sports in terms of life lessons. Not necessarily. I mean, they're going to, make or break your success, but you learn to get along with people. You learn how to evaluate people's strengths and weaknesses right away. You had that feeling of camaraderie, of working together on things. You had the deflating feeling of, going out there and playing your ass off and losing. So there were a lot of valuable lessons to be learned from playing sports. And it was obviously tremendous recreation, and you're getting a lot of exercise that otherwise, would, make it, when women are just sitting around chattering while you're out there banging away on a basketball court, you could see where it might lead later on to demented mental development. No, because you need to let loose. So I couldn't be happier that women have expanded their opportunities in sport. I remember. I still will never forget it. I was covering Fontana High School football for the Fontana Herald News. That was my primary thing. They would talk about football year round. You could not get enough high school football in Southern California in these smaller towns. And they had very prominent players there. As we've mentioned, Anthony Munoz, Ronnie Lott was playing against these guys. I mean, you saw some of the real greats that eventually would go on to first ballot Hall of Fame stature in the National Football League. These were some of the players that were on that beat. Now, you couldn't have anticipated necessarily that, but obviously there was tremendous buzz around it. But I remember there was a coach there. His name was Dick Bruick, was the first guy, and he was kind of very nice to me, very generous with his time, because he liked what I was doing with the coverage of the team, and I was writing massive amounts of copy about his team, and they were scared shitless about Title IX, Lubie,
Oh
when
yeah,
it first came on the scene
football
there in
coaches used
the 70s.
Yeah, football coaches. There was a weird misnomer that their lives would change and it would ruin everything.
They thought it was over. They really did. I mean, they were saying this is all going to end here. It is kind of like name, image, and likeness, where you had some people saying this will be the deathbed of college sports, and it's been anything but that. In fact, as we were kind of alluding to earlier, the possibility. I mean, because people have had to rise to the occasion, like at the University of Miami with this Chico Ruiz guy. That's kept them very much in the game, has it not? In terms of the powers that be that were traditionally getting all of the top recruits, in this case now Alabama and Georgia, and maybe a couple of other schools, that the talent would eventually be spread around, especially because of the ability to lure a kid away through the transfer portal who wasn't playing. Right, so you have to ask yourself, if you can pick up a couple of $1 million, move to another school, and be a starter, why would you stay as a backup at Alabama?
No, for sure. That's what.
There you go. So it's kind of leveled the landscape as opposed to altered it to the point where it was so unbalanced that you would have. And yet, what? You still have the same couple of teams winning.
It's leveled in basketball. The McDonald's All-American, those teams, the teams filled the McDonald's All-American, are not winning at the rate the teams that are taking on a lot of transfers.
Yeah.
Football, again,
it shows you that corruption is good, which is why I am now convinced that I'm going to, vote to reelect Donald Trump.
There you go.
What we need is the Trumpster back in office. That's going to straighten America out.
Yes.
How about this cat man that was going against Putin? Did you realize he was a hot dog vendor at one time? This guy was selling hot dogs on the street. I swear.
Was going on.
Prigozhin, is that the guy's name? And he's marching into Moscow and saying, you know what, Vlad, I'm going to put this rocket right up your ass.
Yeah, we'll see how. Yeah, well.
Now, would you buy into the legitimacy of a deal with Putin? Don't worry, you're not going to face any kind of
there's no
repercussions for this.
He was once voted in because Russia was a democracy when the wall came down in the early to mid 90s. Before him was a president. He was voted in as a president, and then he just said fuck it and took over. And the last 20-something years has just done whatever the fuck he wanted. No, it's not legitimate. He doesn't have legitimate elections. And the fact, I feel bad that...
No, I'm talking about the deal he made with this mercenary soldier guy.
I don't know.
Who was a hot dog vendor. He was imprisoned, incarcerated for a while. I don't know if it was political dissidence or whatever. Whatever. He gets out of jail. And he becomes a hot dog vendor on the streets and parlays that into being like, one of the wealthier guys. He becomes Putin's good buddy. I guess Putin likes a good ballpark hot dog, no?
Okay. Good for him.
You think they let Putin score deliberately when he skated out there on the ice that time before he was tipping off the Winter Games, which just arbitrarily happened to be awarded to Russia? Even though, everybody thought this man was, nothing but dire evil. I saw a good piece. I'd seen it before on 60 Minutes about sports washing with John Wertheim. Wertheim. He's good, right? He's been on our show.
Had him on a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, what a good piece he did on this stuff. They had to revise it. It was an old piece, and they had to update it because they didn't even realize the monstrosity that was about to happen with the Saudis buying the PGA Tour. Keegan Bradley, by the way, nice little story there. Keegan Bradley, it's hard not to root for this guy. Not exactly one of the giant names, but a guy who's had a nice career going. Wins in his home tournament.
Nice.
He's from the New England area. He always wanted to win the Travelers Insurance. He didn't care if he won the Masters. He wanted to win this tournament. He won it. 24 under, an assault on par. I mean, what kind of course is this? Like 50 guys were 20 under par in this thing for 4 rounds of golf. Can you imagine, Lubie? I mean, that's almost impossible.
That putt.
And before we go, we'll come back and wrap things up in just a moment here. I did want to extend, and I believe he's going to try and join us either tomorrow or Wednesday on the program. Our good friend Brad Jacobs. I didn't realize this, but I'm watching a boxing match on Showtime, and they were showing the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies from this year in Canastota, New York, is where the Boxing Hall of Fame is. And, it's not like it's, something that is undistinguished to be a member of the Boxing Hall of Fame.
Boxing
And he was inducted, Brad Jacobs, into the Boxing Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Pretty cool, man. Yeah. So he's going to join us and talk about it. And, of course, he's now the CEO of Top Rank.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I don't know. I
think
think.
A thing? Is it, do they have, who are their boxers? That's the question.
What, Top Rank?
Yeah.
Top Rank's right there. I mean, I'm not sure if they still promote Terrence Crawford or if they had some kind of litigation and that contract ended. But we'll find out. And Brad's going to join us on a show maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. So,
nice.
Congratulations, though. Quite a distinction for a good friend of ours. If you're not familiar with him, he was a guy that came up with the whole concept for the USA Tuesday Night Fights and sort of orchestrated the comeback of Big George Foreman, who would eventually ascend again to the heavyweight championship of the world and become. Remember, people didn't like Foreman. But when he was out there and he was just so big and bad that people didn't really like him. And then he came, and he didn't say much. He wasn't very engaging, and then he became this charming character, mostly promoted by Jacobs, and the fact that he was always on the Tuesday Night Fights, there with Sean O'Grady doing the commentary, and it was great. Which Albert was it? Steve Albert, I believe. What was the guy that was the announcer on that with Sean O'Grady? And yeah, they made a big deal of this. And then, of course, he's promoted fighters, Roy Jones and some others. And then, and did a great job with Star Boxing out of New York City, which he was, a partner in here from his Miami location. And then CEO now of Top Rank Boxing. And of course, we always saw him with Manny Pacquiao. Remember when Top Rank was promoting the Manny Pacquiao fights? There was Brad always in the ring. And probably closer to Manny Pacquiao than any guy, from America was. So we'll talk with him about his career in boxing and the distinction of being in the Boxing Hall of Fame. A bunch of guys went in there. Rafael Marquez was one of the fighters at Carl Froch. Wasn't sure about Carl Froch as a Boxing Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I know that
It seemed like a bit of a liberal decision to put him in there. But nonetheless... we're very proud of Brad Jacobs for becoming a member of the Boxing Hall of Fame. Well deserved. All right, we'll come back and wrap things up. Just going to have enough time to say goodbye in a moment. Now that.
The time!
It's 8:55.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodzie, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
We have a few things we have to establish here, Lubie, before we get moving. I know you're a stickler for the format and all the details. Mike Lubitz, I mean, come on. Lubie.
No, Lubie,
It's called the format. I know Syracuse
Format.
didn't teach that, but there's something called the format.
The only thing I learned at Syracuse was that anything that comes to the station, it's free, grab it.
From South Florida to the entire world, thank you to the iHeartRadio app. Here is Defo joined by Lubie on The Defo Show.
I don't know of any single man right now that's in my circle of friends or acquaintances that is capitalizing more on that concept than Mike Mayo. of the Mike Mayo Lunchbox show, no? I mean, every time he shows us a text, it's some guy in, some chef, some person, some marketing director inviting him for a freebie. And then if that offer and generosity is not extended and courtesy extended to him, then he is getting in touch with the people where he's about to go and supposedly pay to eat and saying, oh, by the way, I'm coming in.
That's my favorite when he's
With
like,
no shame about it. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's, Runway 84 or, some hot dog stand there out by the Hard Rock.
yeah, I was trying to live off of him. I'm like, look, you're finally in my neck of the woods. See if you can hook me up. He's like, wow, who's a snorer now? I'm like, me. I'm like, you're snoring all over the friggin' place. I'm like, you're finally in my neck of the woods. I might as well get a little bit of
Right. I mean, for your hard work, you're at every one of these outside shows there, no matter how far, distance you have to travel. Aren't you going Wednesday to some place in Miami, for God's sake?
I'll be everywhere, and I'm happy with it. I'm just saying, like, I go all over the place. You're finally in my neck of the woods. I'm obviously going to try. Like, Jesus.
Wouldn't he throw you like a small portion of the freebies, right? I like that he invited you to the, Seville birthday dinner, and then
I wasn't invited.
that day, me, it was like, yeah, you've been there, DeForest, so go fuck yourself. And but then went without you, and the next day he could have easily extended the courtesy of that Coconut Creek thing.
Yeah, honestly, it's right by my
And
house.
said, you know what, I can't make it there. I'm sorry, but why don't you leave dinner for two for Mike Lubie Lubitz, my producer?
Exactly.
And no, never was under consideration.
No, he mocked me.
Yeah, he's got bacon hanging from the ceiling. What was that? Over like dripping juice onto a piece of cornbread. Incredible. All right, we'll find out more about that, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. But Schnorr, why don't we just call it Schnorr's Corner?
That's really what we should do, a segment of him just snoring.
You know what I saw that struck me out? I don't know. What would constitute the qualifications for this? I'm driving on Pembroke Road to Gulfstream on Friday.
Yeah.
Now, I know they have this big kosher restaurant there, sort of just east of 95 on the north side of Pembroke Road.
Okay.
They converted some place that was something else into a kosher deli of some sort. I don't know if it's a deli, but it's like a big kosher restaurant.
Okay.
But pretty close proximity to that. Maybe it's the same people that own it. Would probably be the most rational thing to think. But they have a business called Kosher Motors. It's a used car lot. Now, what would constitute making a car kosher?
I don't know, it's Jew owned.
That some rabbi checked out the muffler to make sure that it wasn't making too much noise. What do you think?
No, a car's not kosher. Is like a food or a way of life, and even then, it's pretty much food related. It's not a.
Would you be tempted to buy a used car from a place called Kosher Motors? I mean, without disparaging your own religion here.
I mean, maybe. I mean, it would be cool to work with people of my own background, I guess. But I don't really. I'm not loyal when it comes to car purchasing. It's more who's going to give me the best deal. Like, I don't give a shit if you're Jewish.
How deep of a rooted trust do you have in small, used car lots?
That's my problem. I wouldn't trust that at all.
Buy here, pay here.
Yeah, no way.
Pay forever here, but
Yeah,
you're going to pay here nonetheless.
Sorry.
All right, we got to run. We have to run. We'll talk to Schnorr's Corner coming up 12 o'clock today, the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show. We'll be happy to be a part of that. And then we'll join you again tomorrow. Thanks for joining us on a Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday. Thanks very much to Scoop Skolnick. He's always very illuminating, Scoop Skolnick, no matter what he's talking about, man. He knows.
And he's honest. He doesn't pull punches. When I was trying to set it up where, of course, Damien's coming here, he's like, first of all, who knows?
I don't know why I think that's not happening, but that's like my gut instinct.
Well, because it hasn't happened yet. So most people are like, if it's going to happen, it would have happened already. I don't know what's going to happen, actually. I'm not going to lie. And Ethan sort of set me straight in the sense that I was leaning positive for Heat. Now I really don't know. I just don't know.
Come back with the same lineup. Where are they at?
I don't know. I think they're good. I don't know if they're better than the Bucks or the Celtics.
You would think not.
It's weird.
And the Celtics now with Kristaps Porzingis, right? Did that deal go through? I think it did.
Yeah, they made the deal.
Okay. All right. All right. So we'll see you guys later on and then again tomorrow at 7 o'clock right here on the Defo Show. You can catch us on 5 Reasons Sports Network with Defo on 5. That's up there all day long for your sporting consumption. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll see you next time as we leave you now that
The time.
What was the name of this woman who won the golf tournament? I mean, would you finally square up with Sarni and mention it?
No idea.
It's 9:02.
Let's go to eat a damn snack. Look what they done to my soul.